Hey, so I thought I'd do a quick video on why we typically have a fair amount of inefficiency that we often aren't capturing, that we're paying for, basically. In any workplace or most workplaces, there is a fair amount of inefficiency. People aren't doing things to the standard that you need them to consistently enough. Maybe they're not organising their time well enough. Maybe they're not being really held accountable. So all of this can mean that work ends up floating upwards or sideways, so, i.e., the work isn't being done where the work should be done. Blah 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 blah. Like this going on all over the place, and what can often happen is we just cope with it. Line managers cope with it. They just sort of somehow get by, and we never properly address it. And so what that means is most organizations are paying for that inefficiency, and that inefficiency typically is sort of like 10 to 20%. Like if you average it out, about 10 to 20% of the average person's working day is probably pretty inefficient or ineffective, and we just accept, generally speaking, that that's just how things are, right? um, Whereas what we want to do when we're working with clients is we want to basically get that out the business. So by making sure that we are measuring the skills and abilities of the management team, and that's really like tied to things like 360s and things like that. We want to improve the performance process so that we can get a much more accurate assessment of performance, particularly of managers, but not just managers. So we want to try and have a much more objective, accurate assessment of performance, which in itself isn't the easiest thing always, because you're biased. If your team member is like really hoping for that exceeded, and you haven't really set their expectations very well. And then you feel slightly obligated, and this sense of duty maybe to kind of give them the performance rating that they're wanting, whether they quite deserve that or not. It's easier to give it to them. So what we try and do is take out some of that bias by making the process a lot more objective and making it easier to be more objective. So once we've kind of got that much more accurate assessment of performance, you can start to see where the gaps are. You can start to hold people more accountable to it. And then we also make sure we put the skills in for people to have these better conversations, to address performance and stuff like that. What that's going to do is going to bubble out to the surface, this underperformance. It is not uncommon for us to, when we're working with a group of leaders or managers, where it becomes apparent that there are people in their jobs that aren't capable of doing their jobs. As you progressively start to increase the accountability, it dawns on you, I don't think they're actually capable of doing their job. And that is not an uncommon experience that people have when they're working with us. So it kind of bubbles its stuff to the surface like that, where the organization is just paying for people to be in jobs that they're not really capable of doing. And we want that to be bubbled to the surface so that we can address it properly. And we're not serving people by leaving them in jobs that they're not, that aren't right for them, right? That's not good for them. It's not good for us. And so we want to get it addressed. So what we're looking to typically is there's this 10 to 20% sort of efficiency gap, or efficiency opportunity, I suppose. And what we want to do is get that out. So by putting the skills in place, by putting better data in place, by having a more accurate assessment of performance, every time somebody leaves, we want to be saying, do we really need to replace this person? If we improve the accountability, if we improve the results of the team, do we need to replace this person? Can we merge manager areas? So we're going from 2 managers to 1 manager, or 3 managers to 2 managers, and we're literally taking roles out of the business over a period of time. And it might be those roles get redeployed. Like some organization might want to redeploy that resource, or they might want to literally take it out of the business. So we're very much looking at these hard hitting impacts that enable us to create a more efficient organization that isn't just monetarily more efficient, but actually gets better work done more consistently to a higher standard. So, customers are happier, they're getting a more consistent service, they're getting a more consistent product, whatever. But we've lowered our costs or taken out some of that efficiency all at the same time. So that ultimately is what we're trying to do, is to get a more efficient organization that is delivering more consistently, or as is maintaining a very good consistent delivery to a good standard. So I hope that was helpful. That's how we sort of think about this. And you might want to think about in your own organization, do we really have a good handle on the accuracy of performance, and how much of this inefficiency are we living with, and do we want to? So yeah. All right.